What's going on, everybody? It's coming at you now. We're going to talk about the setup on the all-new in 2026 driven eye rest. This is AAE's Integrate limb-driven rest. This is a macro adjust rest. Does not have any micro adjusts. So we're doing macro adjustments, vertical on the clamp, horizontal on the launcher. And this is a limb-driven rest. This particular rest only sets up to the bottom limb. It will not go to the top. So that's generally, for the most part, bottom limb is about 90% of what the customer base wants. There's very few anymore in the world that really go to the top limb. So we're keeping this really simple. As I've mentioned before, the I-Series rests, one of the big things within our design concept was it had to fit the tightest window of bows. That is the Matthews RS. If it fits the Matthews RS, it will fit anything. So if you're ever in question of whether it will fit your bow, if you have the Integrate dovetail, any of our Integrate rests will fit your bow. This rest requires the use of 3 different sizes of Allen wrenches. We've got the 7/64 that's going to run on our clamp. We've got a 5/64 that is utilized on the launcher, as well as some of the timing cord pieces, and a 3/32 for the AAE limb clamp. So that 3/32 is on the limb clamp screws, and we're still a 5/64 on the timing screw. So to start, we're going to take our 7/64 Allen wrench on the clamp. We're going to loosen the screw up far enough that the clamp will slide around the dovetail on your bow, and we're going to install the driven eye onto our Integrate dovetail. On the clamp, going through the logo, you're going to see an arrow going through right through the middle of the logo and through the middle of the screw. To start with, we're going to line that up approximately on the middle of the burger hole. Depending on your setup, where you like your D-loop within how your setup for your tune, obviously we're going to adjust our vertical adjustment for tune off of that. But to start, we're going to come in here, snug that up. Our cord is going to have to run down to our limb here. And again, you can see this cord kind of comes close. This is Matthews inline quiver. So as long as everything clears it, anything on any other bow and any other product just gets farther away. So the cord clears nicely, comes down to here. We're going to put our clamp probably about 2/3 up the way up the limb. Really depends on what bow you're shooting and how much limb travel it has. We don't want to get so far out to the end of the limb tip that we have a ton of limb travel where we end up with a huge loop when we draw. You really just want the string to come slack. That's going to allow the launcher to stay up as long as possible and make for the most forgiving rest setup that you can create. So this is a 3/32 Allen wrench here. We have to completely back out the 2 screws on the clamp. So we have our 2 halves of our clamp. One side has the set screw with the hole through it. That's where the activation cord goes through. That side's going to need to face up into the riser. The flat portion is going to go away from you. Generally, it's easiest to do with the bow either upside down or at least laying down. Take one of our screws back through here. And start the other one. It's very important that when we install these screws and are tightening them, that we do it evenly. You do not want to crank one side down, particularly on a bow such as a Matthews with their split limb technology, their quad limb technology here, because we got to keep even pressure across that limb. So we're going to get the screws started evenly. And like I said, most of these bows to start with, we're going to go about 2/3 of the way down the limb. If you find that that wasn't enough to fully activate the launcher and have the launcher come all the way up at full draw, and that could be very dependent on your draw length and how much you're flexing the limb, then you just simply loosen the screws up a little bit and move them closer to the limb tip. So again here, I'm just taking this down to where it just barely applies any pressure On a Matthews with the, again, their split limb, their quad limb design here, they have their vibration dampener. This will not hurt the vibration dampener. We're not cranking on these screws at all. So we're gonna find about the spot that we want them. We just gotta make sure that once you get about where you want it, push this clamp towards the outside of the bow. You do not want it to potentially be able to strike any of the features on the cam as it rotates around. It's very important that we keep that clearance. So again, actually, I'm going to go right on this F. I like that spot. Loosen this up so I can slide it back out just a little bit. That looks like a really good spot to start on the Lift RS logo. So now, and I'm watching the ends of both these screws as they come through. When we're done, I really want them about the same distance apart. We are not cranking on these screws. It just needs to be snug enough that the clamp cannot slide. It's not going to go up the limb once it's tight enough. The limb gets thicker. So again, we don't need to crank on it. That was very light pressure. You know, I can't easily move this thing. It's not going to get closer to the limb pocket. The worst that's going to happen if it somehow does slide and go the other way, it's just going to speed up the timing of your rest. Not the end of the world. But again, that thing's not going anywhere. We have our rubberized gripper on the inside portion of the clamp that grips the clamp well. So from there, we're going to come in, and you really want to look at the angle, and depending on your riser and limb design, decide which direction your cable is going to travel through. On this bow, I'm actually going to go from the back. We're going to push our cable through right there. And again, we have our activation knob timing screw up here on the top. We do not need to mess with the timing down here on the bottom. You can. It's really dependent about what you're most comfortable with. For this riser, with limb-driven rests, again, which side are you most comfortable with? We're going to go ahead and just pull about an inch tag through and tighten this screw down right here with a 5/64 Allen wrench. Then we're going to do all of our rest timing from the activation knob. Again, that is a 5/64 Allen wrench as well. We're just going to back that off about 2 turns to where I can pull the cord through, just like that. Now, on the bottom of the driven rest is our axle lock screw. The purpose of this lock screw is to allow you to lock the rest into the down position for setting the timing. So we're going to push this thing down firmly into the shelf. And on the driven eye, unlike the standard driven, that is a 1/16 Allen wrench. So again, I'm applying firm pressure, keeping the launcher down into the shelf, and I'm going to tighten that screw down. That's tightening directly down onto the axle to hold it into place to set the timing. Now I can come through on my cord here and pull it very tight. The reason I say very tight is when all this is loosened up, it's going to give a little bit and the launcher is going to come up off the shelf a little bit. We don't need the launcher smashed into the shelf. So we're going to apply a little pressure there. Tighten our set screw down. Okay. Then we're going to come back with our 1/16 and just back the axle lock screw down off about a turn. You can go 2 turns. But once you loosen it, you'll hear it there. It popped. Now the launcher is free. Okay. We came about a turn out. You can see now the launcher is just off the shelf. It's pretty much perfect. The reason we don't want it crammed onto the shelf is every bow has limb over travel. Some rests utilize a down stop, but then if there's limb over travel and there's a down stop, that rest is then going to get crammed into that down stop and it's going to apply a ton of force on the limbs. Setting the timing up this way, keeping it the limb clamp away from the limb temp. We again just need the rest to come up into its up position, and then we get all the travel and all the delay that we need without needing a down stop, without needing any activation variance devices. So from there, we're just going to confirm that our timing is correct, we're going to draw the bow and make sure that the rest comes all the way up onto the stop. On the inside of the rest, we have our set screw that hits our activation knob, or our timing stop. We're going to draw the bow. You can see it easily comes up in contacts. I have some slack in the cable. I can almost go closer to the limb pocket if I wanted to there. That's it. Timing is preset. Now we can begin our tuning. All right, now that the rest is installed, we still have our tag line left over here. I'd cut this off maybe right about the back of the riser, a little more to have a little bit of excess to play with. If you're gotta adjust your timing later on. We still have an extra inch down here on the limb clamp as well. So we've got some adjustment points. Again, the driven eye is our base model rest, is a macro adjust, non-micro adjust rest. So our horizontal adjustments are going to be made here on the launcher using a 5/64 Allen wrench. And again, this is our Prophecy launcher that we've had around for 15 plus years. This is a polymer launcher. You don't need to crank on this thing like He-Man. Because it is a polymer, the set screws are not going to back out. They're not going to come loose. We just loosen them up a little bit, make our adjustments left or right, however we need to go for our bear shaft or our paper tune, and snug them back down. That's all it takes. Very little pressure, these screws will not come loose. Same thing again, the vertical adjustments are all made here on the clamp. It's a 7/64 Allen wrench. The one thing to note when you are making vertical adjustments, particularly on a limb-driven rest, as you go up or down, it's going to change your timing. So you may have to reset your timing every now and then if you have to move it very far. Again, it's very simple. We lock down our axle lock screw, loosen our set screw here, loosen or tighten as necessary, just to ensure that we have this nice little gap on the shelf. So included in your packaging is our Launchpad. It includes our arrow cradle. It's an extremely handy addition to put onto your shelf, particularly with a limb-driven fall-away rest, because this will cradle the arrow in place when the launcher is in the down position. Make sure your shelf is cleaned. I prefer just to use a little bit of rubbing alcohol, clean the shelf. Then we're going to peel the adhesive off your launch pad and just slide it right up underneath the launcher there. Press it firmly down. If your riser, if it doesn't match up real nice, you can come in afterwards and take a pair of scissors or a sharp X-Acto knife and trim that back around. Now your launcher has a nice soft place for it to come down against if there's any limb over travel, but the big addition is the arrow cradle, which now when you are set up, stocking, or just getting ready to draw, the arrow is retained within the cradle.